Probably when we seized Willie Nelson's old tour bus.
Well, there's a story.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Some, I guess Willie at one point, and I think this is well documented, had some tax issues with the IRS.
Oh, yeah.
And they took his tour bus, the IRS did, and sold it at auction. And some smugglers out of Miami bought the tour bus and built a compartment in it. And, here's this bus with, what were they called? I'm not a big country music guy, Steve, but I think it was the Four Horsemen. It was Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, Chris Christopherson, and I think I'm missing
Johnny Cash.
It had a mural of those four on the side of it with some horses and everything. And meanwhile, this bus is being used to smuggle hundreds of kilos at a time from L.A. to New York.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to part 2 of this week's interview on Game of Crimes with Murphy in the Morning. I'm Steve Murphy, your host here on Game of Crimes, like you didn't know that. And if you listened to yesterday's episode, and let's see, here I am stumbling across words again, you'll know that our guest this week is Billy Bodner, a retired 32-year veteran of the Drug Enforcement Administration, whose career led him all the way up to being the special agent in charge of the Los Angeles Field Division, one of DEA's largest and most active field divisions throughout the United States and around the world. So Billy has moved on from retirement. He's been retired a couple of years now, and we're going to get into his TV career. That's pretty cool, huh? I think it is. I think it's really cool. But we got some more questions because we're still talking about DEA and some of the things that happen. And these are a lot of questions that I think you folks are interested in to learn more about DEA. You hear me talk about it all the time, but I've been retired since 2013, so it's nice to get those folks that were still on the job up until just recently. And actually now DEA is loosening the reins where I can talk to agents that are still on the job. I have to get permission, but that's a nice change that we haven't enjoyed for the last couple of years. So, Billy, welcome back to the show, brother.
Thank you, Steve.
I hope you say that at the end of the show here. We'll see how today goes. All right. And let's just quit wasting time because people know I'll get off on tangents and waste your time. And
yeah, me too.
Well, it's your show, though. I mean, we're here to hear and learn from Mr. Bill Bodner. So, Bill, did you ever make a decision that looked right operationally at the time, but years later, you're still thinking about it and it still kind of bothers you?
Yeah, I would say there was one time in, again, this is probably about 95, where we were doing a wiretap case on a Mexican group importing cocaine, and it crossed with another team in LA. And to make a long story short, it kind of crossed into a controlled delivery. Another group was going to do a controlled delivery of drugs that were coming to our wiretap target. That's a bad situation, right? So we let it go ahead, and it kind of screwed up our case and allowed like the main guy to get away. We never did catch him. And probably we should have found another way to do that. I guess to explain it a little bit, when you're doing a controlled delivery, so another group had taken possession of these drugs, I think, let's say 100, 200 kilos. I don't remember exactly what it was. They got a phone number to deliver it to someone. That person was our wiretap target. So that you really, as soon as the drugs hit that person's hand, they're going to take it down.
Right.
Just to ensure that they don't lose the drugs. As we spoke yesterday, drugs don't walk, right?
Right.
So we delivered it to him when we had a kill switch in a car. We tried to make it look like it was just the car stalled and they abandoned it, and we had it towed instantly, and tried to kind of set it up to make it look like a somewhat plausible scenario. The crooks didn't go for it, and it kind of messed up the case. And looking back, I mean, that was probably not I don't know what else we could have done, but probably something other than that.
And I thought you were going to go a different direction with that. I've been in offices as an ASAC where other DEA groups would get competitive with you.
Oh, yeah.
And even knowing that you had a wiretap case going, which, ladies and gentlemen, a wiretap case is about the most egregious investigative technique you can use against an individual, because you have to exhaust every other means of investigation before you can get authorization to do a wiretap, because it's so invasive on people's privacy. And you might be thinking, yeah, they're just saying that. No, we take that stuff seriously. Okay, so when you've got a wiretap case going with one of my enforcement groups and another DEA group knows that, and they try to backdoor you or they try to do a knockoff that's going to screw up your wiretap case, that causes issues. And you know what that boils down to is just egos.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it was. Exactly what it was.
Yeah. So, so during your career, I think I know the answer, but actually, as you were talking yesterday, I didn't feel like I knew the question or knew the answer. During your career, which cartel or cartels did you primarily focus your investigations on?
When I started, it was Colombians, right? It was Cali cartel stuff, North Valley, really Cali transitioning into North Valley cartel stuff in Colombia. What was interesting is even at that time, so we're talking 93, there was still for some reason, Orange County, California was still kind of a strong Medellin cartel area. There was a lot of people, Moncadas and Galeanos, and a lot of people with pretty strong family connections back to Medellin cartel players were still in Orange County, California, not necessarily getting sourced by Medellin people at that point in time, but still in the business 100%. So it started with Colombian cartel organizations, and then really it was Sinaloa cartel after that. A little bit of AFO stuff, Ariano Felix organization, but mostly Sinaloa cartel all throughout the late 90s and early 2000s.
It's interesting you mentioned Moncada and Galeano, because for those of you that, if you've seen the Narco series, what led to Pablo's escape is when he killed Kiko Moncada and Fernando Galeano in the prison because he thought they were holding out on him.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know they had family members in California. That's the first I've ever heard of that.
We arrested one of the Moncadas in 93, Leonel Moncada, and then Jose Galeano was a guy we arrested in 96 or something, and he was, on that case, we probably got, I don't know, maybe 2,000 kilos, something like that, ballpark 2,000 kilos of coke over several months, not in one hit. But he was a major LA guy back then.
That's just staggering to hear those numbers.
Yeah. Well, at that time, there was no meth. Like, you'd get a pound or two of meth, and you would think, and hey, when I started, cocaine was kiddie dope, right? That was what the old school guys said. The old school guys who would work probably BNDD even maybe, or at least in the 70s, it was, if you weren't working a heroin case, like, what are you doing? Cocaine was kiddie dope. And then cocaine kind of took over everything. And we would look at meth and be like, wow, we don't want to go do a deal for 2 pounds of meth. We want to do a deal for a couple 100 kilos of coke.
Yeah.
And, man, what a change. What a change over the 2000s when all of a sudden meth started becoming the king.
Yeah. I have these flashbacks as you're telling these stories. You remember Tom Cash? So Tom came down to be the special agent in charge of the Miami Field Division. I think he came out of New York. And we're knocking down hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kilos of coke. I mentioned yesterday, my first case undercover, we got 400 kilos. My first case as a case agent got 500 kilos. And all the other guys are making cases, some much bigger than that. And he comes in and he said, he made the announcement, he just wanted everybody to know that he thinks cocaine is kiddie dope.
Oh, 100%. That was, yeah.
I'm thinking, okay, how many 500 kilo loads of cocaine have you ever taken down there, big boy?
Yep.
But he's the boss.
And Steve, if we did a case in that time, I would say the late 90s, if we did a case from 95 to 2000 in LA that didn't get cumulative over about a year or 16 months, if it didn't get 1,000 kilos or a ton of coke, it really wasn't, in my eyes, wasn't a successful case.
Yeah. That's just hard to believe, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
Oh, man. So, and I tell you what, I think the world Tom Cash, God rest his soul, yeah. He's left us now, but ended up being, when I came out of Colombia, he offered me, he said, do you want to come back to Miami? I'll take you in a heartbeat. That's, for me, that was a compliment.
Yep.
So who do you think is the smartest criminal that you ever encountered?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's see. Man, I have to give that one some thought. We do only catch, is it true we only catch the stupid ones, or do we catch some smart ones too?
We always say we catch the low-hanging fruit, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The smartest one we ever caught. Like, who was,
or just even encountered that you were up against?
yeah. I mean, I know I mean, when I was in ASAC, the guys did a money laundering case and they turned it into almost an Israeli organized crime case. And the guys in that case were pretty smart. They
Wow.
had been, I guess mobster is kind of the correct term. They had been LA Israeli mafia mobsters for a long time. And it was finally DEA and in an undercover money laundering case that took them down. So I would probably say that crew was probably the smartest and the most savvy. And really, I think it was because they were so entrenched in the community and they were involved in so many different types of crimes and everybody lived in fear of them. And the guy was it was like almost like an old school movie where when there was a dispute, they would come to him to settle the dispute, like whether it was about a drug debt or whatever it was, they would actually go sit down with this guy and he would make a decision and it was a binding decision. So they kind of ran it like an old school mafia organization.
Yeah, that sounds like one of the old Godfathers.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really what he was. That's what people called him.
Wow. I mean, I know Israelis have crime, but I don't know that they sent mercenaries over to teach some of the FARC guerrillas how to fight, how to shoot and move, and just different things, build explosives and that type of thing. But I'd never thought about the other part.
Well, and don't forget, they also, and this is probably when you were even at SOD, Steve, I think, is they were also involved in kind of setting up a communication network on the other side of the border in Mexico.
Yeah, I do remember that, and going down to the El Paso Intelligence Center and seeing some of their capabilities, and wow, that's pretty impressive. And I'm not going to expound on that because it was classified then. It might still be classified. I don't know.
Yeah.
Trust me, ladies and gentlemen, you are getting your money's worth from our people that are out on the border.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's not just DEA. That's all federal agents and law enforcement that's along our southwest border.
Yeah. And just to be clear, I'm saying that these were Israeli criminals that set it up for the traffickers on the other side of the border.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what's the smartest adaptation that you've ever seen from a drug trafficking organization?
I think the move to getting away from phones, because, hey, I mean, especially since that was kind of my thing, we were making a killing on phones. And I guess the next iteration after phones was BlackBerry devices offering a BlackBerry Exchange server with encrypted communications. The server was in Canada, and we had no access to it at that time. I know RIM or BlackBerry made some changes later that enabled us to do some things in the United States.
Right.
But at this time, which was, make sure I get the timing right on this, probably like 2004, 2005, 2006 in LA, a lot of the cocaine that was coming into LA at that time was going up to Canada. And these Canadian groups used strictly encrypted BlackBerries. And they would bring down ecstasy and high-grade marijuana. They would sell it in California, take the cash in California, and buy cocaine in California, and then ship that cocaine back up to Canada. And there was probably one of the best DEA cases I've seen because of, I always tell people, like, you can tell a good DEA agent not because they're proactive, but because they create a reaction. In other words, they're going to take some action in an investigation that's going to cause the crooks to react in a predetermined way that they've kind of theorized in their mind. And so there was a company called Data Locking, right? And they were a Canadian-based company, crooks in Vancouver, that ran a BlackBerry Exchange server strictly for the use of criminals. And they had advertising on the internet. And I used to do an SOD, when I was at SOD, I used to do a presentation on this case. The agent was, I don't know if I should say his name because he's still working for DEA. And I just don't know if that's appropriate or not, Steve, but he's the smartest agent that I've seen. So we did a search warrant at their kind of place where they would sell the BlackBerries in California. Now, keep in mind, the server was in Canada. There was nothing we could do. We couldn't intercept the server. And when we did the search warrant, we got a list of all the email addresses that they currently had active. And there was several thousand email addresses. And what we did, talking about like what separates a great investigator from an exceptional one or someone that can dictate a response, misinformation kind of. We created a Firebird address or a U.S. government email address. And I don't know what it was called. Like, I don't remember. It was like something at DEA.gov though. And it was like information at DEA.gov. And we sent an email to every single device. And it said, the United States Drug Enforcement Administration has reason to believe that this device is being used for criminal purposes. If you'd like to communicate, if you'd like to share information about criminal activities before you're potentially charged, contact us by this email. So what did this do? These 5,000 people panicked. Like we did have some other intercepts going, and you could see them talking about it. Like, dude, we just got an email from the DEA. What the? So, but here's the brilliant part of that. Then started an SOD operation where we provided devices.
Right. I remember that.
So step one, remove confidence in the current piece that was out there that drug traffickers were using, remove confidence in those devices, and then step in through informants and provide a device that, quote, can't be intercepted by law enforcement. And I probably shouldn't get into too much of the details on that. Eventually, this was during the Obama administration, it was shut down, but it was phenomenal. And like, that's the kind of thinking that we need in DEA. Like, I laugh today when I hear some pretty accomplished DEA people talking about, for example, military strikes and saying that has no effect on the supply chain, blah, blah, blah. Who says that's being done to affect the supply chain? What you want to do is you want to remove confidence that a trafficker has in one method of smuggling or one communication device, and you want to be there to step in and offer that service at the same time. So if DEA has an informant who can do containerized freight out of Colombia right now, probably pretty popular. You know what I'm saying? Because these panga boats aren't working. So look at the big picture. Crooks will adapt, but there's even for the most encrypted communications or whatever, there's still a solution. And a lot of it involves psychological warfare, or I don't know what you'd call it, Steve, like doing things to remove confidence that are basically you're lying. We're saying we could intercept this device when in fact we couldn't. We just had a list of email addresses, and that caused a big shift in the traffickers and enabled us to then supply devices. Like, that's the kind of stuff DEA is famous for.
Absolutely. And I remember, I think this might have been before you came to SOD, but you're probably aware of it. We purchased through SOD tons of calling cards because that was the big thing, because everybody thought, well, if I use a calling card, they can't intercept my conversations.
Yep.
Well, maybe we can't, but we can certainly get the phone numbers that you're talking to, and then we'd use our informants to spread those around. And that's the thing I think I loved about DEA is, just like you said, a new challenge comes along and DEA finds a way to adapt to it.
Steve, again, my Spanish isn't the best, but if I were to say, bienvenido a saludos, marque su código personal ahora, like, you would know exactly what that is, right?
Nice. Well, that sounded very genuine to me.
If I said I heard that 10,000 times, it wouldn't be an exaggeration.
Well, when I say hello, it's hola, y'all.
Yeah. No, but the Saludos calling cards, or all those calling cards back in the day, like, again, it's a problem, but sometimes when that problem is solved, it provides a really significant investigative opportunity. So you can bitch about all these issues or find a workaround. And I think DEA is the best at finding that workaround. Like that case I was talking about with the Blackberries was 2006, 2007. And then literally the FBI did it in 2021, 2022. So we were 15 years ahead of doing that. But again, it was completely under the radar. Like, no one really knew about it. and probably for good reason.
Well, and there's so many other programs that I'm not going to divulge on here that DEA has done that for political reasons, or I don't know what the hell. A lot of those extremely successful programs were shut down.
Yep.
And none of them are done illegally. The ones that are classified are done through the FISA courts, the Foreign Intelligence Secrecy Act courts. So a judge approves all these programs. It's not just a rogue law enforcement agency deciding, oh, this sounds like a good idea. Let's try it. It's all done within the realm of the law.
Oh yeah, this one I'm talking about was approved by a guy at DOJ who was a very high up guy. I think he was probably in charge of the Office of Enforcement Operations at DOJ. And I remember going to the meeting, kind of talking it through with him. And as soon as he's like, yeah, we can do that. I was like, meeting's over. Let's go. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't want to give him too much time to think about it probably, but it's 100% approved by DOJ. And it was, unreal what people did with that case.
Yeah. So during your time, were there any cartel innovations that genuinely surprised you?
I mean, I think encryption was one. You know, nothing that really surprised me because, hey, they're going to, talking about smuggling, like they're going to do whatever works and it's constantly changing. There's always tunnels. As soon as there was such a thing as a drone, it was being used at the border to cross drugs. Ultralight aircraft, some of the more sophisticated compartments in cars, smuggling in produce, which was a huge thing after NAFTA, especially in LA. I mean, that's where the big loads were coming across. So as far as actually being surprised, I don't know, maybe I was just a little kind of so jaded at that point, or I don't know, just nothing. I got to the point really, nothing would surprise me. You have to always expect that things are, as much as they stay the same, things are going to change. Hey, here's what I would say on that note, Steve. When some people ask me what DEA really does, there's one thing that DEA does that has never changed since day one. And I think if DEA keeps this focus, they'll be successful. And that is DEA targets agreements. There's never been a drug transaction without an agreement taking place, right? At some level, whether it's on a phone, someone agreeing to a location to meet, or whether it's through some encrypted means, agreeing on a price. Like, two people just don't randomly show up to do a drug transaction. A 2,000 kilo load doesn't just automatically appear in Central America en route to Mexico. There's some agreement somewhere at some level, and whether it's through informants, intercepts, undercover, that's what DEA does. They target those agreements, they exploit them, they collect information, and then, boom, they action it. So as long as that focus stays, DEA will be successful.
I like it. So here's a question I bet you've never been asked in your life. If you were starting your own drug cartel today, what would you do differently than from the Sinaloa cartel?
Something that Jerry Spezial told me once. Anytime you're going to talk about drugs, go out on a rowboat in the middle of a big lake, strip naked, and talk. That was it. I think if I was going to run a drug trafficking organization, being able to communicate is key to the success of that organization. And it's like I said, because you need a way to make agreements with other people around the world. How do you protect those agreements? That's the cat and mouse game. I'm probably far enough removed from it that I don't know the tech that's even available out there now, but somehow try to protect communication, because that's the weak link.
That's it. And you got to love Jerry Spezial to come up with an idea like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. What is the biggest single lie that you think Americans believe about fentanyl today?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm going to say that people in this country were seeking it out, Steve. I feel like people think that, there's a fentanyl problem because there's this demand for fentanyl. that there became a demand for fentanyl in the United States, and that's just not the case. No one was looking. When fentanyl showed up in our drug supply, there wasn't one drug user, not one addict or substance use disorder person out there that was looking for fentanyl. One thing I always say about the drug market, it's a supply-determined market, meaning that whatever issues we have with drugs in this country, it's because primarily Mexican drug cartels decided that that was going to be the drug that they traffic. And I think a lot of people in this country think like, man, you know, that we've created such a demand for fentanyl in this country. Not the case. Big Pharma did a lot of marketing for oxycodone pills. Do you know, Steve, in 2012, which was the height of the prescription opioid epidemic in this country, there were 255 million opiate prescriptions written in the United States. And this is at a time when I think the adult population of the United States was about 240 million.
Wow.
So when I say that to people, they go, oh, come on, Bodner, you're saying that everybody in the U.S. had a prescription for an opiate? No. There were a lot of people in the U.S. that had a lot of prescriptions for opiates. And if you look at, CDC has all this data. If you look at the prescriptions from 2012 onward up till today, they've dropped every single year because people realize like, hey, OxyContin's not really safe. It is habit forming. It's addictive. It's not this miracle pain drug. It's an extremely dangerous drug that the U.S. government even had a hand in the whole approval process and everything else, whatever. But as that drug disappeared from the supply chain and there was still this demand for pills in the United States, the Mexican drug cartels sat back and probably the most genius business decision they ever made was they said, hey, why aren't we in this business? Like there's such a demand for pills. The marketing's already been done by Big Pharma. The supply now is being cut back. Prescriptions are going down. Let's make fake pills and put them in the market and just step in and take advantage of all that. And that's what they did. If you looked at a chart of opiate prescriptions going down and fentanyl deaths going up, they would just be going in complete opposite directions. So I think Americans tend to think like, hey, this is a demand problem with fentanyl or it was a demand problem. No one was looking for fentanyl. It was a business decision by drug cartels to get into a drug that, think of how great that is, Steve. You don't need coca fields, right? You don't need opium fields. All you need is chemicals. And you have a Chinese government. We can talk about this. I know you already talked about this with Ray, but you have a Chinese government that's offering incentives to chemical companies in China to make these fentanyl precursors only for exportation, by the way.
Right.
They're not allowed to be sold in China. They can only make them for export. When you put all those factors together, it makes it so easy for the drug cartels to say, let's get into synthetics. We're going to replace cocaine and heroin, the drugs that rely on Mother Nature. We're going to replace them with these synthetic drugs. We control, we're vertically integrated or whatever you call it. We're going to control the complete supply chain. We don't need to worry about sourcing coke from South America. We don't need to worry about controlling land where there's a good climate for poppy growth in Mexico, which used to be the thing in the old days, right? All we need to do is have a lab and a warehouse, and if the heat gets too much, we can move that to another warehouse in a different state. So I think, back to your question, now that's a long answer, probably what Americans need to realize is that the drugs we have issues with, it's not really by the choice of drug users in this country. It's a business decision on the part of drug traffickers of what drugs they can make the most money with. And unfortunately, there's synthetics right now that are just incredibly addictive.
Right. Right. And you look at the amount of the amount of fentanyl that is required to produce a reaction to drug users is so much smaller than the amount of cocaine or heroin that you need to get that same reaction. So they have to smuggle less product in, which makes it easier for them.
Yep. And hey, you look at like Philadelphia, let's say Kensington, or on the West Coast, up in San Francisco. What's that area? I can't believe I can't remember it. But you can't find heroin. I'm pretty sure, like, if you go to Kensington in Philadelphia right now, you probably can't find heroin on the street. Is that because everybody there was looking for fentanyl? No, they had an opiate addiction. And at some point in time, the supply changed and now it's fentanyl and that's what it's going to be.
Right. So here's another good question for you. What would happen if DEA just completely disappeared for 1 year?
Well, if I look at CDC data, it would be a catastrophe for the American public, Steve. Because one thing we know that's irrefutable, and man, I think I got in trouble for saying this one time. They asked me to speak at a ONDCP conference, and I said something that I heard that wasn't too popular with. We'll leave it at that. I said something that probably wasn't too popular. I said DEA runs the most successful harm reduction strategy there is. No questions asked. Like, what DEA does is harm reduction. We know from CDC data that when the supply of a drug increases, the harm caused by that drug increases. When the supply of a drug decreases, the harm caused by that drug decreases. And using prescription opiates is the absolutely perfect example of that. So the more fentanyl there is on the street, the more Americans are going to die. And that's irrefutable, right? The more fentanyl there is, the more Americans are going to die. The more methamphetamine is, the more homelessness and mental health issues we're going to see in a city. And I think by even taking arrests out of it, which I believe are a very significant part, but even just looking at drug supply reduction, DEA has an incredible harm reduction mission that they practice every single day.
Yep. I mean, what do they expect you to say about DEA? It sucks.
Yeah.
But we made our lives there.
Yeah.
So why did you retire? Why did you decide to retire from DEA?
I didn't.
Uh-oh, Jay, yeah.
No, I turned 57, man. I went till the last day. And you know what? It was something that when I first started with DEA, I said, this is going to be my life. It's going to be my career. And I worked till the last day of the month that I turned 57 and I walked out the door. I did not seek an extension. I mean, just so people know, there is a mandatory retirement age of 57, but I think you can be extended up to 60 1 year at a time. And my whole thing with that is I have no idea, Steve, whether it would have been approved or not. But after 32 years, one thing is for sure, that I was going to go on my own terms and I wasn't going to be on pins and needles waiting to see if I could continue at the job that I loved. I just said, hey, I'm moving on. And it's funny, Steve, my wife gave me a very nice watch for when I left DEA. And there was an inscription on that watch. It said, happy graduation. And that's her mindset, right? And she wasn't wrong. Like, it was like, hey, I spent 32 years getting educated about this business, loving every minute of it. And now I'm moving on. I'm graduating. I'm moving on to the next thing. So it's not, to me, it wasn't really about retirement. It was about kind of seeing what else I could do with what I had been taught, what guys like you and everyone else had taught me for the past 32 years.
Excellent. I mean, who wants to go out bitter?
No, absolutely. No, you can't let that, you cannot let that happen. You cannot let that happen. It's something you dedicate your life to that you love. You just it has to be on your terms.
Yep. So, and that kind of brings us into the next stage of your life. And before we get into a few questions here with you, Billy here has experience working with America's Most Wanted, with TMZ when they were talking about the Matthew Perry case, the National Geographic with Mariana Van Zeller, who I would like to meet. He's been involved with several different shows on HBO. You heard me yesterday mention, and I might have mentioned it today, about the successful series Euphoria. Not only is he a technical advisor on Euphoria, he is an actor on there. So when I first talked to Billy about this, he said, the first two seasons of Euphoria are a little different. And so I thought, well, I'll watch the whole thing. I'm always flying. So I downloaded it on my iPad, and I tried to watch the first two episodes, and I thought, I don't understand what's going on. This is generational, and I'm way past that generation. But then is it season 3 or 4 where you got involved? 3?
Mm-hmm. Season 3.
So how did you get involved with Hollywood and that Euphoria series?
So with respect to Euphoria, probably in 2024, late 2024, somebody from DEA, who long since retired, reached out to me, and I don't want. I've spoken to them since and said, "Hey, look what this simple phone call did." I don't want to say who it is, and they said, "Hey, the people from HBO. I wonder if I could connect them with you. They're looking to do something in LA where maybe they could take a tour of a DEA office or something like that." And I said, "Absolutely, we can make that happen." So I had a group of about 10 people from the show. The creator the creator, director, writer of the show is named Sam Levinson.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how much respect I have for this guy and how I feel about this guy. He's just an incredible person. And I think it comes from seeing someone approach their job the way you like to think you approached your job, right? So when I talked to him a little bit, I kind of, at least on my part, I felt a connection. Like the term I always use is, this guy gets it, right? This guy gets it. Now, he is someone who had struggled with addiction himself. And his thing is, even in seasons 1 and 2, I think it's for the issues that we were facing in this country in 2019 and 2022, when seasons 1 and 2 aired, I think he did an amazing job of showing addiction and the dangers of fentanyl and what's going on in the kind of drug culture of high schools, could be high schools, colleges, etc. But anyhow, I took this group of 10 of them to the DEA office and showed them what an interview room looks like, what a group A looks like, evidence locker, et cetera, et cetera. Like, kind of gave them a feel for DEA and talked to them at length. In the LA office, there's a bunch of pictures on the wall of different seizures, and he was asking questions about all these things. And there was one picture from a 2012 case where someone actually tried to drive a Jeep Cherokee over the border wall. They laid big metal beams on each side, and they tried to drive this Jeep across, and it got stuck. And the BBC even, like, if you Google this now from 2012, the BBC even did a story about this. Look at these idiot traffickers who got caught trying to drive up a ramp over the border wall down the other side. That turned out to be the opening scene from season 3. He just got inspired by seeing that pictures and by hearing about that particular case. And he said, man, when I heard that, he said this in interviews since, he said, when I heard that, I thought about the lead character in the show, who's played by Zendaya. Her name is Ruby Bennett, the character's name, Rue Bennett, and said, man, that looks to me, that feels like something she would do. So at the end of that meeting, he said to me, hey, what are you doing now? And I said, well, I just did this show with Mariana Van Zeller. And, I'm doing a little of this and that. And he said, okay. And then probably a month later, they called me and asked me if I would consult about the drug content on the show. And I said, absolutely. And it's good that I'm in LA and it's convenient for them, because I can shoot up to the studio in Burbank and sit down with like 5 or 6 guys and just talk stuff through. And I mean, that's real important. It's hard to do that kind of stuff by telephone. So that relationship went on for a month or 2. And then someone from the show called me and said, hey, we want you to audition for a part on the show. And I said, man, I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I'm flattered, but I'm not an actor. I'm not a SAG card. And they're like, don't worry, we'll take care of that. Just audition for the show. And I did an audition, and the first take, if you were to look at the first take, Steve, it was absolutely disgusting. Horrendous. But after 5 minutes of kind of relaxing, getting in the flow, and one thing I'll say is the audition was a pretty intricate scene. I did have everything memorized. And when they kind of said what they wanted, hey, try it a little like this, I was able to do that. And, a couple of weeks later, they called me and said, hey, you got the part. You're going to be a co-star, technically a co-star. You're going to be a co-star on the show. And I thought, man, that's wild. Like, what an opportunity, or what a fun thing to be involved with. And so that's how it started. My first day, I've told this story. My first day working, I show up, and the guy that I'm working with, my DEA partner on the show, I don't know if you got that far. Season 4 is all done now. He's an actor named Hemke Madera, who's extremely accomplished actor. I mean, he's been in a bunch of stuff, TV series, movies. Like, he's a dude that's working, I don't want to say every day, but probably he's doing something major. He's involved in all the time. And I remember sitting down with him in the green room, and I was just honest with him. I said, Hemke, like, I'm not an actor. Like, I feel like I don't really deserve to be here. You know what I mean? There are people that would grind doing these parts for years just to get an opportunity to have this position on a hit show. And they need health insurance, and they need this. And he said, bro, you're here for a reason. You know the DEA job. I know the acting job. Just have fun. We'll be a team, and we'll do it together. And I think if you watch kind of that scene we shot on the first day was an interview of Ruby Bennett, Zendaya's character. And it's a pretty funny yet serious scene that came out really good. I mean, everybody involved really liked that scene. And it's just, hey, I'm not really acting, I guess. Or as Mike Chavarria said, maybe you were acting every day when you were at DEA, and you're just doing the same thing now. But yeah, that's how it all started.
Oh, that's so cool. And I have watched the trailers, saw you on there a little bit. So of the actors, I don't know if you've met them all, but which ones ask the smartest questions about law enforcement?
The only person that really asked the questions was the director, the creator of the show, Sam Levinson. And one thing that is so cool about him is I feel like he's a person that he can be exposed to something. Like, I could have a 1-hour conversation with him about drug trafficking, and in his mind, he can extrapolate that, and he can fill in a bunch of blanks, and he can kind of go well beyond what we talked about, but still have it hold true to the principles or the reality of what we talked about. So he was the one that really I would talk to about the drug trafficking side of things, him and a woman named Marlise Simone, who's one of the producers on the show. And hey, they trusted me, Steve, because the way that show is shot, as strange as it sounds, the actors only got what's called their sides. And you probably know this from your experience, right? So they only got, they didn't see the whole script. They only saw like their portion of the script. But I had seen and read the whole season and kind of given input on different things and et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of the actresses kind of didn't know how these little scenes fit into the big picture. And the way it was shot, I guess because of scheduling or whatever, it was kind of shot out of order. And I didn't get to meet, I probably met about 30% of the people that worked on the show. But I was really blessed that most of the scenes I did, Zendaya was involved in those scenes. And man, she's so phenomenal. And she's so good with working with someone like me who has had no experience and probably shouldn't have even been there, and kind of being patient and kind of letting things happen.
Excellent. So, folks, if you haven't seen that series, it's on HBO. It's called Euphoria. Go check it out. I promise, Billy, I will watch, especially the parts that you're in. But check it out. I mean, it's successful. They're in season 4, so that if it wasn't working, there wouldn't be a season 4.
Season 3.
Season 3. I'm sorry.
Season 3. See, and episode 4 is where I show up, and then I kind of have little spots throughout. There's 8 episodes. I have little spots kind of throughout the rest of the show.
Excellent. So I'm just so proud of you for what you're doing there. I love to hear what DEA folks do after retirement, because it's not just going to being a security guard, being a blue coat at the federal building. You know what I mean?
Right. Graduation. It's graduation, Steve.
Your wife was dead on.
Yeah.
Now, Billy's got a couple other things going on here. He founded and he's the managing director of a business called, is it Revelo?
Yeah, Revelo
Investigations and Consulting. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so what I do with that, Steve, is mostly work on behalf of victims. I try to do mostly work on behalf of victims of drug crimes. Most of it has turned into the consulting side, working on different TV projects and working with producers to get stuff going. I don't really do much just strict investigative stuff anymore, just by choice. It's mostly, like I said, subject matter stuff on behalf of victims to try to stay true to that.
Excellent. Excellent. And then you're also a member, you're an inspector for the California State Athletic Commission, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Matter of fact, I was at the White House. There was a big fight. I don't know how much of a fan you are of combative sports, Steve, but there was a UFC event at the White House a couple of weeks ago. And I was one of the people, luckily, I don't know, luckily or I'm very proud to have been invited to participate in the regulation of that event because it was on federal land. Like normally, a state athletic commission will sanction any combative sports events in that state. There's one in Georgia, a big one in California, a big one in Nevada. And because this particular event was on federal land, they brought in people from, or actually, because it was on federal land, the Association of Boxing Commissions kind of took over the role of regulation. And they brought in people from Nevada and California, and I was one of those people.
And you're actually an MMA fighter yourself, aren't you?
I'm a jiu-jitsu practitioner, not an MMA fighter. At 60 years old almost, I know better. But yeah, I still train jiu-jitsu, still have fun, and it's as much a social thing as it is a physical thing now.
Yeah. Yeah. Things that I find out about you in retirement that I never knew about you.
Right.
Yeah. Did you train under the Gracie program?
Yes. Yeah. The Gracie brothers, the two grandsons of Elio Gracie, the kind of the founder or part of him and his brother kind of basically refined jiu-jitsu and made it what it is.
Excellent. If I had it to do all over again, I think I would have gone for jiu-jitsu.
Steve, law enforcement should use more of it because really it's a way to control someone without striking. And if you're good at it, it can be done with such little effort. And even now, the Gracie brothers have something called GST, which is a program geared for law enforcement. And part of that is a technique called the safe wrap. And really, it's post-certified in California. More and more departments are going to it. And like, hey, why wouldn't you want to do something that's going to reduce your liability as a department? It's going to reduce injuries to arrestees or to the public. And equally as important, it's going to reduce injuries to the law enforcement personnel. And that's really what it does. Like, why wouldn't you want something like that in your department? And a lot of departments now in California are actually paying for their officers to attend the jiu-jitsu school because they find it so beneficial to the job.
I think it's one of the best programs I've ever heard of. I hope that more and more agencies take advantage of it. Billy, there's a very devoted listener here on Game of Crimes named Rick Jacobson. We call him Rapid Fire Rick Jacobson because I have a Patreon subscriber channel. That's patreon.com/Game of Crimes if you haven't checked it out yet. But each month I have a Q&A section. And so Rick always sends me questions, but he also started a rapid fire section. So here, several guests ago, I started incorporating that in here. And we're going to go through a little rapid fire with you if you don't mind. These are short answers, or you can expound on them if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So first up, toughest cartel today.
I'd say right now, CJNG.
All right.
Just because of and it's rapid fire, so I won't explain. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. The smartest criminal you ever encountered.
Yeah, probably High Walk 9, Israeli organized crime.
The most overrated drug kingpin.
Ryan Wedding.
There you go. He's been in the news lately.
Yeah.
The most dangerous assignment of your career.
1992 Los Angeles Gang Task Force. That was it.
All right. One city that would surprise people with how much drug trafficking occurs there.
Denver.
Really? I'm surprised by that. Okay. Most important trait of a great DEA agent or a DEA leader.
A DEA agent, I would say it's sense of urgency, which I think I mentioned yesterday. And a leader, I'm going to say it might be a little different. Man, to inspire the confidence of the people, you have to know the job. And your focus still has to be, no matter what HR stuff is going on, no matter what BS is going on, you still need to be focused on the investigations and make sure that people are on the right track.
Because it is the Drug Enforcement Administration.
Yeah.
Most innovative criminal organization that you've ever seen?
I would say Canadian, I'm going to just generalize it and say Canadian drug traffickers in late 90s, early 2000s.
All right. One thing every parent should know about fentanyl.
Where it is in the illicit drug supply chain.
One social media platform you would force to change its policies tomorrow.
Snapchat.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is not the first time you've heard a lot of this stuff on here, so these are experts telling you. Are we winning or losing the fentanyl battle, in your opinion?
We are winning.
That's great. The one phone call that every SAC dreads receiving.
I mean, it would be a phone call about a critical incident, any kind of critical incident.
Agreed. Who's a better actor, drug traffickers or Hollywood actors?
I'd say Hollywood actors.
All right.
Hey, the one thing I'll say about Hollywood is as real as Hollywood tries to be, the story still comes first. You can probably experience that.
Yeah. Well, it does in the legitimate production companies. I'll say that. The most realistic crime show that you've ever seen?
I mean, Steve, I got to plug Narcos. Come on.
Good answer.
Yeah.
That's. I thought you'd say something like Barney Miller.
Yeah. I mean, The Wire. The Wire is a show that I think was extremely realistic. The HBO show. And not only was it realistic at that time, when you look at some of the parts of it, if you were to go back and watch it today and look at some of the parts of it that you thought were crazy when it came out, you would look at it today and go, oh, we have that in big cities now.
How about the least realistic crime show you've ever seen?
I don't know. I might have to say my favorite show of all time, Steve, just because everything got wrapped up every week. Miami Vice. They did some pretty complex cases in 60 minutes, man. But I love the show. Don't get me wrong. Michael Mann's a god, so I love the show. It's just not everything is 60 minutes.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
What's harder, testifying in court or acting on camera?
Testifying in court. Hey, and here's the funny thing. My first day, we sat around and did a table read, Steve, and they asked me, okay, Bill, you ready? And I said, listen, if worst comes to worst, I'm not going to get kidnapped or murdered if I something up today. And if this were undercover, that would be debatable. So I think we're all right.
That's right. Well, my go-to answer is nobody's going to die today. We're good.
Right. Right.
Who complains more, actors or agents?
Agents.
We could be whiny, can't we?
But, hey, I was a SAC, so I saw it all. So,
yeah. What do you miss most about DEA?
The people. The people. I don't miss the politics. I don't miss the BS, but I miss the people because there's some of the most brilliant, just greatest people out there are carrying that DEA badge.
Yeah. And listeners, or viewers, you can't see that. I'm sitting there just shaking my head yes to everything he's saying.
Yeah.
Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Early bird. I'm in bed at 9:00.
I'm with you, man. Okay, choose one answer on the following. A search warrant or surveillance?
Surveillance.
UC operation or long-term conspiracy case?
Oh, long-term conspiracy.
Miami in the 1980s or Los Angeles in the 2020s?
Miami in the 80s.
It was a blast, I can tell you.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
All right, now think carefully about this one. El Chapo or Pablo Escobar?
What's the with respect to what? With respect to what, though?
Just choose an answer, man.
Choose an answer. Pablo. Don Pablo.
I agree. Oh, now this is really tough. Narcos or Euphoria?
Oh, Euphoria. Come on.
There you go. You got to say that.
Yeah.
And last one, DEA badge or a SAG card?
DEA badge. Without the DEA badge, there'd be no SAG card. So DEA badge.
There you go. And this, ladies and gentlemen, SAG card, if you don't know, Screen Actors Guild. It's like the union. All right. And in your opinion, a DEA agent or an actor, which one gets more nervous before a performance?
Probably an actor.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think agents are, and it sounds silly when I say this, but you go through so many dangerous situations, you, I guess, kind of become accustomed to them so that you know how to handle that stress and the adrenaline that goes along with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, Billy, doing research on you. I know you've received a lot of awards during your DEA career because you worked on some phenomenal cases. I know you guys got some administrator awards for group achievements and things like that, but I couldn't find those listed anywhere. So you need to put those on your LinkedIn page or something so I can find it next time I need that information. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I did find is in 2022, you got the Presidential Rank Award. What's that and what was it for?
That's a good question. Yeah, so I did get that in 2022. I think so. What I got? That's an award from the Office of the President that I guess goes to a distinguished SES person in the DEA cadre. I don't really, to be honest, know that much about that side of it. But what was it for? I think it was for the one thing I tried to do as a SAC, Steve, is I tried to bring the focus on the victims of drug crimes, right? Because I felt like that was something that was missing. And by not including the victims, people get the idea that it's a victimless crime. Hey, drug trafficking is just a victimless crime. And I think I helped kind of show that no, when a 13-year-old dies in his bedroom at night with his parents downstairs, that the person that sold the drugs to that 13-year-old, they need to be held accountable. And with I think that award was for kind of bringing focus to the victims and really pushing drug-caused death investigations in LA. We started a program where we had something called OD Justice, and it was a team that it turned into the whole office by the time I left, but it was kind of a team that would go after dealers who sold drugs that killed people. It's very hard for the public not to be behind that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, like we had a case where there was one dealer in Pasadena, California, who killed 3 people in a weekend, and 2 other people overdosed but didn't die. So if DEA doesn't do something in that case, what happens the next weekend? Is that person going to stop trafficking drugs? And the answer is no. So my thing was showing the public that DEA is addressing the drug problem where it's killing people. And I think that's important that we continue to do that today and keep the focus on the victims of the drug crimes instead of the traffickers.
Absolutely. I've interviewed several homicide investigators, longtime homicide investigators on here, and it's all about getting justice for the victims.
Mm-hmm.
They deserve it.
Yep.
Absolutely. I love that. So we're getting here close to the end. I just got a few more questions for you, Bill, and I'll let you go. Where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years from now?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I think what I'm going to be doing is whatever it is, it's something purposeful, and it's something fun with people I respect. I hear about a lot of opportunities, and I probably say no to stuff 70% of the time or more. And that's because of either the people or the purpose. Something doesn't align with what I'm looking for. It's got to be fun with good people on purpose. That's what I'll be doing in 10 years.
I like it. I like it. If you could go back and speak to a young man named Bill Bodner on his first day at DEA, any words of advice or warning you'd give him?
I mean, I would hopefully give him the advice that I gave to every new agent that came in when I was a SAC. And we kind of spoke a little bit about that, I think, yesterday, of have a sense of urgency. You're going to be given a lot of freedom on the job as a DEA agent. Respect that freedom and be great at something, and stay focused, but you got to work.
I always try to tell people I would do the same thing as an ASAC is in an enforcement group when new agents would come in, is especially right out of the academy, is I hope you don't think this is Monday through Friday 9 to 5. This is a lifestyle. If you didn't know that, you should have done your research before you joined.
Yep.
And let's see here. If Hollywood made a movie about your DEA career, what scene absolutely has to be in that film?
Probably when we seized Willie Nelson's old tour bus.
Well, there's a story.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
I guess Willie at one point, and I think this is well documented, had some tax issues with the IRS.
Oh, yeah.
And they took his tour bus, the IRS did, and sold it at auction. And some smugglers out of Miami bought the tour bus and built a compartment in it. And here's this bus with what were they called? I don't know. I'm not a big country music guy, Steve, but I think it was the Four Horsemen. It was Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, Chris Christopherson, and I think I'm missing
Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash. It had a mural of those four on the side of it with some horses and everything. And meanwhile, this bus is being used to smuggle hundreds of kilos at a time from LA to New York.
That's not funny, but it is funny.
It's funny. Especially since the government sold it to the traffickers. You know what I mean? So that bus got seized twice. The U.S. government owned that bus twice.
Where is it now?
That's a good question. I don't know. There's pictures of it on the internet. You can find it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, buddy. So here's your last question. Any words of advice or wisdom that you would provide to anybody considering a career in law enforcement or a high-risk occupation?
You know, I gotta be careful with that one, because anytime, Steve, we're almost the same generation, but anytime someone of our generation gives advice to a new person, we're doing it through our perspective of what we experienced as a young agent. And that's not the reality of today. For an example of that is I once saw a sheriff's deputy who had close to 40 years on the job as an LA County sheriff's deputy, worked all these specialized assignments. And we were kind of sitting around BSing, waiting for the opportunity to do a car stop. And there was a black and white there that was going to help us with a new hire, or a probationary officer and an experienced officer. And this deputy went right up with him. And he was telling him about how, this job has got to suck for you now because everything's video recorded and you have cameras and there's this and there's that and everything. And the credit to the young deputy, he stopped the senior guy and he said, "Sir, this is all I know. It's okay. Like, I'm used to this." And I think so much when we give advice to young people, or I don't even make it sound like that. When we give advice to people thinking about embarking on a law enforcement career, we have to be careful not to do it from what our perspective was 20 or 30 years ago. Because we remember, Steve, you remember that salty guy that was in the office when you got there, whatever year that was, who probably told you how all the things that were going to go wrong and how everything was this and that. And the reality is, like, it's a great job. Don't worry about how it used to be. Worry about what you're going to do with it going forward.
Yeah. Javier and I, we did have the opportunity. We haven't done it for a while now, but we were going to the DEA Academy a couple times a year to speak to the basic agent trainees. And it was an after dinner event one evening. We tell the Escobar story. And at the end, the SAC would always, or whoever was in charge when we were there, would say, "Do you have any words of advice for everybody?" And my words were, first of all, I'm jealous of you because I know what you're getting ready to experience, and it's going to be the time of your life. You're going to have, it's as good as you make it, it's as bad as you make it. But the main piece of advice is have fun, because you're going to be able to, if you choose, you don't have to, but if you choose, you're going to be able to travel the world. Somebody else is going to pay for it. You're going to get to experience things that people read about in books or they watch on fiction television shows, but you're actually out there really doing it yourself. So I could have never imagined retiring from law enforcement, but it's funny how the good man upstairs opens the doors for you, and this thing called Narcos came along. So, ladies and gentlemen, here I go fangirling again over this guy. I mean, I've just had the utmost respect for Bill Bodner since I met him, and I'm going to guess that was probably in about 2002 or 2003. Here we are all these years later. The things that he's doing in retirement, I mean, he's a bona fide TV actor and star right now. I just think it's so cool. If you'd like to find out more about Billy, I told you yesterday about his podcast. It's called Truth Nation Podcast, so check that out, Truth Nation Podcast. You can find him on YouTube at Bill Bodner, and Bodner is spelled Bodner, or you can look at the title because his name will be in there. Found him on Instagram, Truth Nation Podcast, on Facebook at Bill Bodner, on X at Truth Nation, LinkedIn, William Bodner, I'm sorry. And he's got his website for his business, Revello, so it's REVELOIC.com. Did I get all that right, Billy?
Okay, that's all right.
So check him out, support the brother, man. He's out here doing great things. Bill, just saying thank you for giving me your time and being willing to do this. it just doesn't seem adequate. But I hope you know how much I appreciate you giving me your time and coming on the show and being so open and transparent with your answers, being honest, telling people, really giving them an inside look at the real DEA here. So thank you, brother.
Thank you for having me, Steve. A lot of fun.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. We're thanking everybody right now. So thank you for continuing to come back every week to support the show. We've started our 6th year now. I don't know how long this thing's going to go, but I'll be here as long as the good man upstairs gives me the opportunity. The thing I don't understand, and I hit you with this every week, is why you continue to come back. But I really know, because you enjoy playing the biggest, the baddest, the most dangerous game of all, and that's our game of crimes. God bless you all. See y'all next week.